Right now,
Hello.
Zain, Memon, and I are live on YouTube. Join us on our YouTube channel. Go to YouTube, search for my name, Anand Gandhi.
There should be a live stream there.
There
yeah.
should probably be a
There
live
should probably,
stream there.
if everything goes to plan.
So join us on our live stream on YouTube. See you guys.
Are we live? Yes. Hey, thank you so much for joining us. We are just going to have a nice free-wheeling conversation about life, universe, and everything. We'll try and keep it contained, try and keep our thread going, but the idea is to talk to you, talk to everyone on a more regular basis. We tend to retreat into our caves for too long, too often. This is an attempt at not doing that.
Where we are streaming live from the cave. This is the cave.
Yes, and if we just go blank randomly, it's because we are in Goa and the power tends to be intermittent at best.
Wi-Fi even more so.
Yeah. So we might go blank. Just let us know. Yeah.
And feel free to ask any questions at any point. It's a conversation. We are not we're not here to create content. We're here to have a conversation. We are here to broadcast ideas that we come up with very often, and we feel could be of value to a lot of people outside of Memesis. There's so much happening at Memesis all the time, and we know that the community is always curious. You guys are always curious about what's happening, what's cooking, and we keep feeling that we'll share everything once it's fully, perfectly baked.
Absolutely perfect. Yeah.
And that brings me to Leonard Cohen's beautiful song where he says, "Ring the bells that still can ring. Forget your perfect offering. There's a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in."
Let's hope that gets in today. Okay.
Okay, cool.
So we'll jump into a few questions. One question I get asked regularly by people who have who like our work, who consume our work, is you guys do a lot of things. There's films, there's television, there's publications, there's board games, and very soon digital games. Why are you doing so many things, and what is it that you see as your role in all these endeavors? The response to that is we tell stories, and the stories take 200 forms. I always tell Anand that in the future, when brain-computer interfaces become a real thing, the storyteller will be the person who can just craft a thread of memory, an encome of memory from one brain and put into another brain. And that's the ambition. Everything is a means to that ambition.
And how much ever one romances the notion of creation, more than anything else, storytelling has always been curation.
Yeah.
From the very first cave painting to today, stories are more curation than creation. It's more about the details that you decide to privilege. It's a focusing mechanism. It's a mechanism of creating software that you can use, you can deploy towards creating a better future.
Yeah, in the 30 years of the cave person's life, why did they choose to make that painting of them hunting a bison? Why did they curate that moment? What was going on in their mind that this is important, this needs to be archived, this needs to be communicated? And that intention is the intention of the content creator, the storyteller.
Absolutely. I say this very often actually, Zain. Like a lot of writers send me scripts, and all these years in my life, for the last 25 years now, I've been reading scripts of writers and peers who share their ideas and notes with me. And often I pick something up and I say, hey, this doesn't make sense. Why are you doing this? What is the reason behind putting a scene like this or a moment like this in your screenplay? And the answer that I often get is, oh, because it happens. This is exactly what happens in reality. This is what goes on all the time, and that's why I'm reflecting this in my script. And that answer annoys me over anything else, because you are creating a distillation in that 2-hour film or 10-hour series that you're going to put out, or a novel or a piece of poem that you're putting out. You're making a very small, focused micro distillation of a very, very, very vast reality. You're flattening a very complex reality into a two-dimensional map. Why are you choosing to say that versus anything else that you could say? It's not because it's real.
And how you say it.
And how you say it. And it's not because it's real, not because it happens in reality that it's good. That's not good enough. That's not a good enough reason for you to put it there. The reason for you to put a moment, or distill a moment, or an insight, or even reflect a moment of reality.
Or the moments in a particular way even is to
That's the next tack.
Yeah.
That's the next tack. The order in which you say it. But even before, like just dialing back before you go to what order you say it in, even before that, the Lego block that you take, the Lego block of reality that you choose to mirror or reflect in your own worldview, is going to shape the final architecture of your worldview.
Yeah.
It's going to shape what you believe in, what you think reality ought to be, should be, what the problems are that you want to solve yourself as an author, or want to point the attention of the viewers at.
Yeah. And stories, and that needs to be carefully done because stories have great impact. There are people who will always raise their hands up in the air and say, I'm just telling a story. It doesn't affect people's belief systems, people's behavior, people's moods, people's ambition in any way. That is completely wrong. Let's pull out a few examples, Anand. Do you have them?
I mean, there was one example that Ayush had pulled up, which was this example of Dr. Swati Mohan of NASA, who who was responsible for the for a very important, crucial NASA project on
I think Mars rover.
Mars rover. Yes.
Okay, please fact check us. Whenever we talk about facts,
Yes.
please feel free to fact check us. Drop it
Yeah.
in the comments. Everyone should be fact checked.
There is something that Ayush had put together when we had kind of spoken
Yeah.
about this last, and February 18th, 2020, there was a a mechanical fireball hurtled through space at 12,000 miles an hour, and finally when touchdown was called upon, it was under the leadership of Dr. Swati Mohan,
Yeah.
a NASA astronaut, who said that she was inspired as a child to join NASA, to become an astronaut, to go into astronomical sciences, into astrophysics as a child when she saw Star Trek.
It's interesting you say Star Trek because I have read so many interviews of so many people working at CERN, working at LEGO, working at so many different amazing projects. What got you into science? It's more often than not a very good science fiction story. A Star Trek episode, an Asimovian tale. It's the best stories that inspire the children in us to really and shape the worldviews, and that happens in adults too. A few years ago, a story was told. Yeah. Okay, great. Sorry, technical issue like we mentioned earlier. It's our first stream, so there's bound to be, and we have Shiva and Mayuresh troubleshooting for us. So thank you so much. Awesome.
This is on like a film shoot.
Yeah.
The stress is not there that
You get the
every
best shot.
passing minute like a $1 million is lost or anything like. So we're just
Winging
playing
it.
with time. We're just losing you your time while you're waiting.
Yeah. So another story was told, a story about a very evil man in a land far away, covered in sand and dust, who had these large weapons that could destroy the world, and this man needed to be stopped at whatever cost, and the free world would have to rally together to stop this man. Now, I'm not at any point saying that this man was right. This man was a good man, or even a good leader. But what we are trying to say is that this man didn't have weapons of mass destruction. Iraq was invaded for entirely different reasons, but the story was sold to us.
The story was sold, and if you really think about it, the true weapon of mass destruction in this situation, like trillions of dollars and hundreds of thousands of lives lost later, the true weapon of mass destruction in that case, in this sense, was a story.
Yeah, was
So-
mass media.
Of so broadcasting story, when we tell stories, we are also telling, we are also sharing, we are also collectively sharing our aspirations or our warnings. We are coming together as a society and updating the behavior software that genes have granted us, that natural selection has granted us.
So we're looking at the past and archiving the moments and collecting the most important moments. So there's the archival quality to storytelling. Then there is the assessing what's going on, what we're living in, what really parsing through the lives that we live on a daily basis, our relationships with our partners, our government, our children, everything. And then there is the future. What does the world hold? What are we building? What should we be scared of? What should we not do? What are cautionary tales?
One young writer had asked me in one of the forums where I was speaking. A young writer had come to me and asked me कि तो फिर कहानी आईना होता है या कहानी सपना होता है? And I think that's a nice metaphor. That's a nicely put question. Is story a mirror, or is it a simulation? Is it a dream? And that often brings me to this idea that the greatest human achievement, the greatest human ability is foresight, and the engine of this foresight is hindsight. So hindsight is almost like aina. It's a reflection. You collect, you reflect. It's like a mirroring exercise. It's a mirroring tool that we have in story. Through this tool that we have in story, we mirror what has happened and what is going on around us, in and around us.
But that is truly unique to us, right? We are the only species that transmits so much information, such dense packets of information, non-genetically.
And increasingly so with the advent of recording systems of the last decade, we've been doing it exponentially more than ever before. I mean, we are witnessing things that we had never imagined in our wildest imaginations now being captured on video on a daily basis, or scrolling through our timelines. And with that degree of hindsight, we can only hope and imagine that our foresight will be much sharper. Because that's really the relationship between hindsight and foresight. This aina and sapna relationship. कि आईना देखने के बाद आप अपना सपना और बेहतर बना सकते हो. कि आईने की ज़रूरत इसलिए है ताकि आप अपना सपना बेहतर बनाओ.
And the sapna might also be a nightmare. It might be something that you need to be scared of. Don't Look Up is a great film about what will go wrong when catastrophe strikes. And to me, it was almost like a mockumentary of our real times. It reminded me so deeply of the pandemic.
Exactly, and that trick of filmmaking, I mean, that's something that we aspire to all the time in games and films, where the trick really is to take what is and simulate what ought to be or what may be if we don't take XYZ steps to avoid it. So it can be a dream, what ought to be, or what may end up being a nightmare, depending on how we treat our relationship with the present and the past. And that is really what a film like Don't Look Up does. That's the aspiration. I mean, I keep getting asked over and over again, if and when am I making Tumbar 2? I've clarified it sufficiently. I don't think I'm making Tumbar 2 at all. And what I'm making instead is a better version of anything I've made in the past constantly. That's what I aspire to making. That's what Zain aspires to making as well. Sorry, you were saying.
Yeah, no, I'm saying let's come back to the question at hand. Okay, so if stories are important and stories shape our world so much, are there any guiding stones that we must abide by when we choose what stories to tell or how to tell them? And two, if stories are getting more and more curatorial and not creation, and there's a fine line between the two, with the advent of AI. Right now, AI can create images rapidly of very high fidelity. It's operating at least the 50th percentile of art right now. Very soon, you'll be able to type a sentence and have an episode of a show ready. Type a sentence and have a biography of a person ready. When creation becomes so democratized, that's great. But how do we create structures in place that amplify the best instincts of us and not do what early Web 2 social media did, which is amplify fear, amplify hatred, amplify the most
The basest in us.
basest of instincts in us, because then suddenly stories will be able to be made by everyone. And how do we make sure that as a society we curate healthy food for ourselves? So that's the question I want to really delve into today.
I mean, that's a $1 trillion question. That's really the biggest question out there in front of us, in front of humanity today. That we have enough evidence to know that stories impact our behavior. Stories, and by stories I don't only mean novels and films, but stories everything that we see on social media, everything that we
and even like I wouldn't even call the layout of an app, the UI UX of it, a story.
Absolutely, the journey that one app makes you take or directs you towards is a story. Absolutely. So there is just so much stimulation. There is so much stimulant being thrown at us today, and there is so much story that we are engaging in today that we don't even know what amount of our behavior is being informed by what we are perceiving on a daily basis. I mean, we know that there are these there are very clear boxes that are being created because of WhatsApp universities of the world, and because of and that discrepancy between people's worldviews, between people's ways of understanding their life and the universe around them is so vast today than ever before, because everyone is consuming completely different stories. In that scenario, how do we use AI responsibly is really the biggest question in front of us. How do we use AI in a way that does not end up amplifying our basest, our worst?
Because it's easy creation mixed with just a rapid dopamine cycled sharing platform. So that could be a recipe for disaster if not done right. Again, I'm not in any way suggesting or hinting not democratizing content creation. As a matter of fact, more and more people should be allowed to tell their stories.
This reminds me of the classic Steve Jobs interview about Microsoft, and this is something that we speak about often as well. That he was asked what he thinks of Microsoft products, and he said that he thinks that they're really well marketed, and in fact it's extremely wonderful that they've reached the world. But at the heart of it, they lack design, they lack spirit, they lack. There is something to be told about good storytelling, good design, good UX that informs our experiences, our behaviors in a way that is completely invisible, and that is where the products lack soul, he said, and he
classic Jobs,
and he said that it's kind of almost the responsibility of people who have access to the best ideas, to the best insights. I'm just like paraphrasing or probably elaborating.
You'll find the clip online somewhere. If one of your friends are, just drop it down.
Yeah, so that it's the ones with the best ideas, who have access to the best insights, the best experiences and possibilities, to ratchet up the overall consciousness of humanity by exposing the average person, because the average person does not necessarily have the tools to be exposed to any of these ideas, and hence chooses to go for subscribe to lesser ideas or lesser vision or a lesser idea of a future or a lesser hence a lesser story, but hence it's the responsibility of the ones who have access to better ideas to ratchet up the overall consciousness of humanity.
But again, it's the balance between the elite, educated, I know what's better, and just allowing more people to tell stories. My response, and I think Jobs was saying this as saying that my products are better, they are cleaner, sexier, better experiences. And my response was, but if it was for Jobs' vision, I wouldn't have been computer literate. I don't know if you would have been computer
Likewise,
literate.
same. Yeah, I would not be.
It's because of the open-endedness of Microsoft that we did become computer literate, and now. So again, that is a good segue into the first question I posed, which was, okay, we have created content. There are a million other creators who have created great content, and is there a guiding principle on what to curate?
Yeah,
or,
definitely.
That the next generation or people who want to collaborate with us should think similarly about.
I think there is one.
Yeah.
So here's the thing, and to your point about access, about democracy, about free access to the greatest ideas that humanity has at its disposal. Why should ideas, why should insights, why should tools of knowledge and tools of making your lives better be limited to a very few? And a great example of that is the history of this region itself. There was some degree of attempt at storing knowledge and keeping knowledge within a small community for a while in this region. And there was and as a response to that came 1,000 years of great spiritual poets, great movements of spiritual poetry, and even spiritual translations of older texts that made extremely complex, sometimes even convoluted scriptures into extremely accessible to-dos and don'ts for people who do not have the bandwidth or the access to literature that was created for and by a very few number of people. And I'm talking about Kabir. Like when I was young, when I was traveling across the country at the age of 12, I came upon my first Kabir Bhajan Mala, and I bought it for a rupee. And that book changed my life just as much as any of the books that any of the whatever hundreds of thousands of dollars of tools that we must be spending today in expanding our consciousness or expanding our skill set. That one book of Kabir Bhajan Mala has probably had the same degree of impact on me. So to your point, you are absolutely right. Access and democratization of knowledge is extremely urgent and important always. At the same time, it's ever so more important that people who are making that access possible, making that take even a greater responsibility of design, greater responsibility of what is being said through that, and do not amplify the basest of our instincts, but amplify the best of our futures.
But basest and best are very, very subjective to ideas, right?
True.
So if I were to pick a story and say, okay, this is a story I'm going to tell, and this is the viewpoint I'm going to present. Anyone who argues that my creation is objective, I don't think understands their own authorship. There's no such thing as objectivity. Just the fact of selecting a topic adds an authorial signature on the story.
Well,
what are the rules? What story should I pick? And how should I say it?
I think again, subjectivity, objectivity is always looked at as a binary, and that's really where the challenge lies. I don't think it's a binary. It's a matrix. Between subjectivity and objectivity lies the field of collective subjectivity.
Yeah.
And that's collective subjectivity is perhaps closer to objectivity than subjectivity. And what I mean to say by that is that that is what science in a way is. It's highly formulated, observed subjectivity. We are getting some questions. I think we should jump to questions.
But no, let this question. The same question came back to again and again.
Yeah.
If I'm telling a story, what guiding principles should I have to say, is this story healthy or not healthy? As simple as that. Or should this story be told?
I mean, this is something that you and I completely agree on, and I think we are sharing that. And you, just let's see if we can articulate that clearly and in a distilled way. That primarily and essentially, the focus of human aspiration, collective human aspiration, is to arrive at a degree of equity, is to arrive at a degree of equality, is to hence abolish poverty. It's not that other species do not experience some degree of poverty. In fact, most species experience a very high degree of uncertainty of life, a high degree of predation and hunting. And humans aspire to a point where they desire for equity, where they desire a life of greater certainty.
So stories that, if I have to paraphrase, stories that create more opportunities for more people while not infringing on the rights and aspirations of any innocent.
Yeah, you can. That's a fair definition. It's and it's what we I mean, it's the other metaphor that we use very often, which is that if you what's a principle of what's a basic guiding moral ethic principle of humanity, that everyone should have the freedom and the right to swing their arm. They should not be caged. They should be able to swing their arm in any direction they please. But the right to swing your arm ends where my nose begins.
And the negotiation between what is an arm and where the nose starts is all of civility, all of civilization.
And it's science. It's where we start kind of being able to quantify, and that's why quantification is also necessary. Again, the other extreme of this argument ends up being, which we hear from a lot of our peers, liberal-minded peers, who believe that that all the boxes that exist today are made by whatever white patriarchs, European in a certain century, and hence need to be kind of completely dismantled, and which is a completely fair instinct, but at the same time, some of these boxes of quantification, of formulation, of cataloging are absolutely necessary to go about your working day, to kind of really be able to kind of gauge where the arm ends and where the nose begins.
And cataloging helps clarity.
Yeah.
And when you mentioned past wisdom, I think most of our political divide comes from how to deal with that. There are some of us that say that the past wisdom is great and we should imbibe it, and some of us say it should be discarded entirely. I think the scientific method, and what I think both of us believe in, is examine everything. Keep re-examining every piece of past wisdom you come across. What still makes sense, hold on to. What stops making sense, update.
Yeah.
And it's a constant negotiation. It's not a binary.
And we're going to take some questions now. By the way, how are we timed?
Yeah.
When did we start?
1:30 sharp, I think.
1:30 we start, so we are good. We have another 10-15 minutes before we wrap up.
Who should be responsible for regulating AI while also being democratic? Again, the second we have a body regulating AI, I don't know how a global democracy could come into play. There needs to be legal frameworks. Deep fakes need to be weeded out.
I mean, it's such a difficult question, but increasingly with a collective human consciousness on a constant rise, as we are seeing globally, people who are coming together, communities that are coming together to create AI products, have an embedded sense, have an embedded sensitivity and empathy within them. Like look at DALI, when at least at the outset
of beta, they said no human character. I don't know if it's still around, but no photorealistic characters was their policy.
And they did have a
very PG filter.
They had a filter, and the filter was again coming from a very informed place. There were many filters, in fact, that they kind of shared with us at the very outset when they released the beta, and it made us think about the kind of responsibility that they are taking on themselves. And we felt that they're being very sensitive towards that responsibility. So I think it's also going to be organizations having a certain sense of sensitivity, incubating within these organizations, taking the responsibility of incubating people who come from having spent a lot of time in democratic systems, in creating decentralized autonomous systems and policy frameworks. Every organization that is looking outside towards creating tools of this great power also need to incubate within them labs of such.
Also, the end consumer needs to be very well informed, and the feedback loop needs to be bottom up. Most of us, none of us actually ever read the EULA, the end user license agreement, right, on any software. So we need to be very aware of everything to what Facebook from big tech is doing to big AI is doing, and collectively be informed enough to give a very strong feedback on, hey, this is cool and this is not.
I mean, this is again a very big question that we're constantly trying to solve. We are trying to.
It's a policy question of decade.
Yeah, I mean, it's really going to be the most important question going ahead as well. How do we take decisions? There is something to be said about democracies and their power, and the fact that every last person having a say in what goes into the world.
But there's also something to be said about executive decision
and executive decision making, and about time frames within which decisions have to be taken. So you can't be on a surgical table and take a vote on what needs to be done next. There has to be an expert who says how it's going to.
Federal banks can't take a vote for every interest rate change.
Yeah. So this combination of consensus based, recall based democratization is probably where DAOs are going to lead.
Okay, comments about stories about love and pain. I think that's a very interesting question, and we could do an entire episode on
I was just going to say that's probably our next episode.
Yeah.
Like stories of love and pain.
Yeah.
I mean, there is so much we want to talk about pain and suffering and what is really going on with what has been going on with pain and suffering, and our insights on that, and
also like love, and also the positive emotions that we feel, and how they form a recipe, ingredients to a very good recipe for storytelling.
There is this. I mean, we have been kind of discussing pain in the last few years incessantly. So there is a lot we want to.
So let's do an entire episode on that. thoughts on stable diffusion. If
That's another episode, I think.
yeah, AI art is also in the episode, but yeah, but stable diffusion is great. If you, there are great online apps. Okay, for those who don't know, stable diffusion is an, correct me if I'm wrong, open source diffusion based AI image generating AI. So you put in a sentence, you put in a sentence, and it's GPT-3 based.
Is it GPT-3 based? I don't know. Like
you put in text and an image comes out, and it's damn good already. It's generation 1 and it's generation 2 actually. If you
and there is an application that's built upon it called Dream Studio, which is, I mean, there are many applications built upon it, but Dream Studio is
very good.
Is very good.
Yeah,
it's extremely good.
So Stable Diffusion is an open API, and anyone can build apps on it. People are building apps. People are hosting them on their local machines. So if you have an M1 or M2 Mac, or if you have any decent graphic card, you can download Stable Diffusion and run it on your own machine.
That's the objective answer. The subjective answer, we are addicted to it. Zain and I, for the last 2 months, have had sleepless nights. We have not been able to sleep literally because of DALL-E, Midjourney, Stable Diffusion, Dream.
Does it replace concept artists and artists we work with? No, it does not.
No.
But it helps.
In fact, right when DALL-E and right when we started using Art Breeder and DALL-E and everything, we along the same time we were spending time with Wayne Barlow. Wayne Barlow is one of the concept artists behind. He's the key concept artist behind Avatar and Hellboy, and we're
working with him on something.
We were working
more on that later.
On that, and we have an entire episode on that coming up, I think. But yeah, I mean the kind of work that comes out of human art is still very different from. But like Zain was saying, it's what AI is going to achieve and is increasingly achieving is 80% of the art space, which is...
Also, it is going to also help bridge communication gaps that existed between collaborators. How do I translate what I'm seeing in my head to my concept artist? I can go and reference mood board images from the internet, from what other people already created. Or I can use this AI and just pull out, that's what we have been doing. Pulling out elements, saying a head like this, a tail like this. Now, give me something that
resembles this form.
I'm communicating in better words instead of being that meme on the internet which Zain says, make it prettier.
It's like, the oldest argument. It's like, talking about art is like dancing about architecture.
Yeah.
Like, if I had to express the kind of house I want to live in to my architect by just dancing, and I would do a terrible job at it, especially.
So despite my fantasy, I can imagine well, but I can't necessarily, my hand-eye coordination doesn't allow me to translate it to paper.
Yeah.
But now I can translate it to sort of paper so that my designer knows which way to go, and then they do the magic. The magic happens there.
Are there any more questions, Ayush? Should we like wrap it up today?
Okay, awesome.
Okay, great. So we did almost like a 35 minutes thing. That's not
bad.
Thank
you for joining. Subscribe kar lo.
Subscribe.
We'll try doing this more often. No, really, it helps us. It helps us know whether we are being watched. Feedback loop नहीं होगा तो हम लोग will become lazy.
But send in questions. So here's what we are thinking of doing. Just so that we know that we're not like sending insights out to the
we are not broadcasting to the universe.
We're not broadcasting to the universe. We're talking to our community, to our friends. Send in your questions, and we'll create a mechanism through which like some kind of voting system can
upvote system
can punch in, so that there is a forum where maybe we can have a Discord system. You can kind of upvote the questions that are most relevant and most urgent to most of you, so we can take on those questions specifically in the future episodes. But we'll be doing this tomorrow for sure. We'll be doing this tomorrow.
Yes. Awesome. Tomorrow we should do Love and Pain.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much for joining. This was great. I hope. See you soon. Stop what?